Hello, and welcome to From the Vault, episode 15. I'm your host, Dan Nathaniel. With me, as always, is my co-host, Nathaniel. How you doing, man?
I am doing well, Dan. I am doing pretty well.
Okay. Where's that?
You
got a job? That's exciting.
But that's not important to the podcast. People don't come on this podcast to hear about these sorts of things, Dan. They don't care if we're hobos who live in an alley. They care about magic. Okay?
Some of them are your friends.
We're trying to deliver high-quality magic content here, and you're talking about personal lives. Okay, so I'm happy, Dan. I'm doing well, Dan, because some announcements got made. Some announcements were just slightly controversial, but I think overall mostly liked. But some announcements got made that they are removing 2 cards from the Legacy format.
Ooh.
One of which is in my top 3 worst designed Magic cards of all time.
I really want to hear the other 2. But
it's actually, I think it's my top 5 worst designed Magic cards. I need to exactly figure out which ones they are. I know 3 of them. But it's the top 5, and they all have the same mechanic. It's the top 5 worst designed Magic cards of all time. And the other one is Deathrite Shaman. And I never have to play Wither against that card again, and I'm so happy.
Yep.
I can just never sleeve it, and no one will ever play it against me, and I never have to play Deathrite Shaman sub-games. I hated that card. A lot.
Yeah, well, I actually don't know if I hated it, but I'm definitely...
You didn't play that many, Deathrite Shaman mirrors. They were miserable.
That's true. I specifically stayed away from those and played Nimble Mongoose instead, which has gotten a lot stronger, hypothetically speaking. So let's go through your 3 horrible designs. We should talk about the other card as well.
Okay, yeah, so, these aren't in any particular order, but they're just the 3 cards that I, generally go to whenever I think of, some of the worst design Magic cards. I'm sure there are actually some cards that probably deserve to be in the top 5. This is where I think it's the top 5. But 3 of them are, the card Mental Misstep, which is just so, egregiously horrible. I do not understand who possibly thought it was a good idea.
Yep.
Of both giving everyone access to a free counterspell. Free counterspells are busted.
Yep.
Giving everyone access to them is busted. Making it so that they counter themselves? So, the best answer to one is itself?
Yeah.
Is, all of this is madness. And it is the most... It's just how can you... If this card is ever good in your metagame, your metagame is just screwed. It's over. You have to burn it down. And they did. They had to every time. Ago. Well, yeah. I guess Vintage is still there. I don't know. I still hate it. No, it's still a 4-of. But, I guess Vintage kind of needs it. I guess in Vintage, the most busted things to be doing aren't 1 mana. They're, 4 mana, or they're artifacts, or they're 0 mana. I don't actually know that much about Vintage, so I won't say that much about a format I really don't pay that much attention to. But
sure.
Mental Misstep is an egregiously badly designed Magic card, and I really dislike it.
Agreed.
Dismember is another one.
I've played so many Dismember decks through the years. It's unreal.
Oh yeah. It goes
I totally agree with you.
It goes in so many decks. But imagine, you're sitting down to design this, and you're okay, we want to make this mechanic that lets you pay life instead of mana for things. Okay, cool. So we can play around with things being cheaper. Yeah, and also we can play around with things being in access as a colorless effect, that they wouldn't be otherwise. Oh, okay. So we want to make Throttle, but it's 3 mana, but you can pay 4 life to make it 1 mana and not have to pay any colors of mana. Oh, okay. So you want to completely destroy the color pie for the next 2 years of Standard. And also, kind of forever. Oh, what do you mean? Well, when I'm building a mono green deck, I probably shouldn't be able to play Throttle.
For 1 mana?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be able to play 1 mana Throttle. That just shouldn't be a thing. I should have to have, if my opponent plays Baneslayer Angel, I should have to play Plummet, which is a narrower card. I shouldn't be able to also have a good answer if they play a non-flying Baneslayer Angel. That's stupid. If I'm red, I shouldn't have an answer to Baneslayer Angel that is 1 mana and black that I can play.
My first modern deck ever played Dismember, I've just remembered, because it was mono green Stompy, and obviously we're going to play Dismember in mono green Stompy.
Yeah, because it's one of the best removal spells ever printed.
Oh, I think it's playing Prey Upon at some point too. That deck was wacky.
Dismember is horrible. Dismember,
it's definitely horrible.
All Phyrexian mana is horrible, but the card they have printed is a lot more innocuous. because it doesn't seem to break the color pie in the same kind of way. Or the card they banned, even. The card they banned is a lot more innocuous. It doesn't seem to break the color pie in the same sort of way. And that's Cataxian Probe.
I'm so happy that card is gone. Oh my god, I just... Oh.
I have played a lot of Cataxian Probe. I think I owe a reasonable amount of success in Magic tournaments to Cataxian Probe. The card is really like playing Magic on easy mode, but it also kind of just fundamentally... So it doesn't actually break the color pie. I don't think that peak effects are so unique to blue that, it's so terrible that everybody has access to this effect. It's more that peak effects, when they're good, like if a peak effect is good, you actually kind of have a problem, because, like, why is Magic fun? Like, there's a lot of answers to that question, but one of them is that, like, all the games feel different, because there's this inherent sense of risk, There's like, I'm playing this combo deck, and, I don't really know what's going on from my opponent's side, but I can kind of read him, and I can figure stuff out, and I can get what's going on, and, sometimes I just have to go for it, and maybe he has it, maybe he doesn't, and those are exciting moments. The uncertainty of the hidden information that is in Magic is what leads to exciting, fun moments in Magic, where somebody goes for something and they're rewarded, or they're punished, or all these sorts of things. Cataxian Probe annihilates all of that. It just destroys all of the hidden information in a game of Magic. It just isn't... You just shouldn't... Basically, I wish you could go back in time and go to Wizards of the Coast headquarters while they're designing it and just be like, guys, when you're making this card, do you fundamentally understand what makes your game fun? Because this will not make your game fun. This is not a net fun game. Like this card. It is terrible. So, they probably didn't need to ban it, but I'm very happy they did ban it.
For sure. I mean, so, speaking from personal experience, one of the weirdest play patterns is, I've got this one lander, it's got a cantrip in it. I'm playing Delver here. I'm on the play. I have Daze. I have Delver. I'm going to play my Delver, because I don't know what I'm playing against, and if I'm playing against a combo deck or anything like that, I want to kill them. And I'm on the play, and I've got this Daze, and this is great. And then... maybe the analogy is even better if you don't have the cantrip and you've mulliganed or something. It's not even a notion of choice. But then there's this weird moment where you pass the turn, and they Git Probe you. And they could be Storm, they could be Grixis, and they have a Wasteland. If potentially could have a Wasteland. And so you get into this weird play pattern where you're just like, Wastelanding on the draw can often be wrong, and the idea of just kind of having the information for it to just be 100% right is really frustrating, I feel. And, I love the card Wasteland, but I understand that it can cause a lot of frustration and everything, and I don't know, I think Wasteland plus Git Probe was pretty horrendous.
I mean, Wasteland was definitely not the most egregious offender in terms of combining with Git Probe to be way better than it used to be. Cabal Therapy definitely is one of the big losers from this this ban announcement, which I think has an interesting kind of knock-on effect on a lot of the combo decks of the format.
Which we'll get into.
They banned Cataxian Probe and Deathright Shaman, effectively cutting the head off the format in a way that I think we haven't seen in a while. I even think that the banning of Top is not comparable to this.
Agreed.
Because they banned Top and everyone was like, Miracles is dead! Long live Creature Kings! the Terminus Lords have fallen! And then it turned out you can still play Miracles, you just don't play Top. And actually, you can even still play Counterbalance, and that card's still pretty good. And actually, this blue-white control shell with access to a 1-mana sweeper and Jace and Entreat the Angels as a method of winning the game was actually still very strong. So, hey, Miracles is still around. It's just not the de facto best deck because it doesn't also crush Storm. Which that was why Top was so egregious, was because you got to beat up on all the creature decks and then also happen to crush Storm. For no reason. Why do you get to do those things? But without the Top counterbalance lock, they don't do that nearly as effectively, and so
they play
the deck is a lot more reasonable.
But the
comparison here, obviously. The comparison here, obviously, is to banning Deathright Shaman and Cataxian Probe, but taking 2 cards out of the best deck in the format according to most people's evaluation, Grixis Delver, and it takes a card out of Check Pile, which was probably the second best deck in the format. But when you actually look at those decks, you realize that this isn't. I don't know. To me, this feels very different to when Top got banned. Deathwatch Shaman is it's a far more wide-reaching card. It goes in a lot more decks, and it also basically just annihilates Grixis Delver from orbit.
Yeah. People are still making shells, but God, they look weird.
I don't actually doubt that it's possible that a Delver, Gurmag Angler, Pyro deck comes out of somewhere, but I do believe it will be much, much weaker.
Agreed.
To the point where I think it's basically non-comparable to the deck as it stands today.
Yeah, I mean, just swapping your probes for preordains is not, and finding something else to do with the Deathwatch Shaman slot is not the same deck at all in any shape or capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you have to play very differently, and you can't be nearly as mid-rangey as you used to be. Playing stuff like True Nemesis becomes a significant actual cost because you can't just have a mana dork in your deck. The deck itself just will fundamentally change, and Check Pile is almost certainly gone as it stands as well. You just can't play. Check Pile was already kind of soft to Wasteland. It wasn't like they got Wastelanded once and they lost the game, but if your opponent drew 2 or 3 Wastelands, it was often very hard for you to kind of make enough colors to actually be in the game.
Yeah.
Now, I think they might be in a position where if they're trying to play 4 colors, if your opponent Wastelands you once, you're going to have a really tough time because you don't have the easy mode of, oh, well, my opponent Wastelanded me, but I have this Deathwatch Shaman, so doesn't matter. I have a Birds of Paradise in play that also kills my opponent.
It's also interesting because, I mean, I think what's cool about that, though, is that there's definitely going to be a breakdown in the coming weeks between Bug Control and Grixis Control, and the kind of advantages and disadvantages of each are interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think both of those will be decks, at least in the coming weeks, whether or not they get, they actually rise up or they just kind of get left by the wayside or something else. But that's certainly something that folks are experimenting with and going to be in the queues for the next few weeks.
Very definitely, yeah. I would personally be surprised to see Grixis Control doing that well. I think that the loss of Probe hurts them a lot more than
Absolutely.
Bug.
It does. Yeah, for sure. Pyromancer shells are much tougher.
But maybe you can find something to make it work. It's not impossible.
I mean, I think that I think we'll get to what the shape of the meta's kind of looking like in this very initial stages. But
I think it's really hard. I've seen a ton of different calls about this, and I think it's actually really hard to make one. Because basically every call I've seen has been just on a different level of the metagame.
Absolutely.
Where it's kind of okay, yeah, but if what you're saying is true, it kind of contradicts where you're putting some of these decks. So some people have said, oh, well, Elves isn't actually that hurt by this banning, because Deathwatch Shaman was very good in the deck, but, he wasn't an integral part of the engine. They can still do the things they were trying to do. They're just a little bit less good at grinding.
Yeah, for sure.
But then they go on to say, but we predict the best deck in the metagame will be Reanimator. And you're like, okay, so Elves was hurt by this ban a lot then. Because that's an awful matchup.
Yep.
And, they're not... And, you can't play Elves if there's, 25% of the room is Reanimator. Or if it's Sneak and Show, which is another deck that I think has benefited primarily from this, the banning, because one of their biggest... one of the biggest things keeping them down was Grixis Delver, and if that deck doesn't exist, hey, Sneak and Show looks like a great choice. But if you're Elves, you really don't want to go walk into a metagame where it's it's Sneak and Show, and it's Reanimator, and and we think Miracles is good too. And it's okay, well, why am I sleeving up green, man?
Yeah.
Who am I beating?
Probably D&T, but yeah, which I think is going to be around. I mean, I think
well,
it's
the other
more
thing is,
just...
if you see an uptick in D&T because of the uptick in Sneak and Show, then you can see an uptick in Elves, but I think it's all about, okay, what level are you going to put your prediction at?
Sure.
Because everyone appears to be firing at different levels.
I think all I'm trying to say is, what are people playing? Whether or not that's right or wrong or anything, it's just kind of what's going on at the moment. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, so I think I think that's even impossible to say. Because I think that the answer to what are people playing is going to be, for the first few weeks, everything.
Yes, Sure, but I mean, I still think that there's certain decks that are seeing a bit more prominence. I mean, you're right, it's incredibly varied, but I mean, I think it's fair to say that there's quite a lot of Reanimator around, there's quite a lot of Rug Delver around, things like that.
Sure, I mean, it's impossible to say, really, because...
sure, no tangible data or whatever, it's just kind of what you're running into and what people are talking about they're playing against. That's the metrics.
Sure, I mean, my point is that like the bans haven't actually happened online yet, so
right,
as of when we're recording this, so it's impossible to actually say what's around because
people
we don't
are still
know
playing
yet.
post-ban lists though. It's really weird.
That's true, but they're playing them in leagues where they're also running into Grixis Delver as it currently stands because people are still playing that. So it's a very strange, like this is an exceptionally strange format where half the people are playing with the bans because they want to try out lists and be ready for when the bans hit, and half the people are playing without the bans because they want to play Deathright Shaman and Cataxian Probe for one last time.
Sure. Okay.
So I think it's impossible to really know what's going on right now. And I think, like I say, I think for the first couple of weeks, at least until we have some more concrete, until something does really well. Okay, so my prediction is the narrative will be entirely defined by what does well at the first like Legacy Challenge. Like if Reanimator wins that, the narrative will be Reanimator's crazy now, and you'll see a bunch of Reanimator online. If Rug wins it, people will be like, Rug's the combo killer, it's good again. You'll see a bunch of Rug online. But it won't actually mean that much at first, because like I say, I think that at first, like, the paradigm is so fundamentally shifted that people are just going to be trying everything they possibly can. And a lot of people, like me, are just going to be playing whatever deck they want to play, because, like, Legacy's still kind of that format, and trying to see if any changes to this now make it stronger in a potentially new metagame without Grixis Delver and Checkpile in it. I predict that you'll see a lot of people picking up old decks that were not previously very good because of Grixis Delver or Checkpile. So I would predict lots of people playing Rug and lots of people playing Stoneblade. Not necessarily because I think those decks are going to be good, but because I think that people want to play those decks.
No, for sure. And that's kind of like what I was saying, is just that this is what people are playing. And yeah, whether or not it's good or not is totally a separate issue, but this is kind of, the meta that you're seeing or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's my thing, is like, I think it's impossible to call what's going to be good.
For sure.
Really. And I've seen a bunch of people doing it because, like, that's so dependent on so many things and how everything turns out. But I think that I agree with you that there will be people trying out lots of Reanimator because theoretically, and I predict more blue-black being tried out than red-black. Maybe that's not true because red-black does have a lot of more established lists, but I predict a lot of people trying blue-black because, hey, I mean, you don't have to be blisteringly fast to beat Deathright Shaman anymore. So maybe you can be a little bit slower and, maybe you can play like Ponder and Brainstorm and have access to more consistent cantrips.
For sure.
I think that lots of Rug will be around. I think there'll be lots of D&T around. I think there'll be lots of Stoneblade around. It seems weird to me. Some people seem to have pegged it as Miracles has gained a bunch. Other people think Miracles has lost a lot.
Yeah, that one's a weird one.
Miracles has lost a lot of good matchups.
Yes.
And if Show and Tell and Reanimator are really good, I don't really want to be playing Miracles that much. But if Elves is really good because D&T is really good, I don't know. I think that the thing that's most exciting to me is that it's so unknown.
Yeah, for sure, that's definitely the case. It's, it's just a really exciting time. I can't wait for, as you say, when the bans hit Modo, which is Wednesday, I think. Is it today?
I think it's literally tomorrow.
Right. So, yeah,
it's
like American time zone or whatever. Oh, sure, tomorrow. Cool. I can't wait to queue up and see what the hell happens and play some Rug mirrors, and it's really exciting.
I might actually try Rug again. I didn't really like it when Grixis Delver was really good and you could just kind of play Grixis, and you were a different deck. You were very different, but you're still kind of trying to achieve the same game plan of being like the beatdown in most matchups and being disruptive. You did the disruptive thing in a different way. Rug did it by trying to keep you off mana and like mana denial strategies. Grixis did it with like Spell Pierce and Cabal Therapy. And was just more of like I'm going to make a bigger threat quicker with like Gurmag Angler and then kill you. But I still think, like, they were still both Delver decks. They were both still on the kind of, like, I'm going to play creatures that hit quite hard, and then I'm going to disrupt you while they hit you, and then you're going to die.
Yeah, and I'm first and foremost a Wasteland deck, which is,
yeah,
really
like,
important part of the identity.
Both of them are still Delver Wasteland decks.
Yeah, and then, that's a hugely important, part of the identity, as I said. I made a Rug Discord about 3 months ago, which saw quite a lot of people joining initially because, lots of people love Rug, and Rug
is one of those weird decks where people who like it, I don't know, you're just hooked for life.
That's it.
You stifle a fetch land and you're like, boom.
This is what I
want to do. I can't play any other decks. I don't care how bad it is. You
don't choose the Rug life. And it's now just, it's exploded this week, which is a lot of fun. So there's a lot of healthy and it's all kinds of discussion happening at the moment. A lot of it is people just coming in and being like, what am I doing? Somebody tell me, what does a list look like? But, we've already kind of built up a good community with, like Sean Brown, the guy does This Week in Legacy, and like Ryan Lesko and Eric Virgo over in the States are really good Rug players. So it's pretty cool. It's exciting. And yeah, some good stuff going on. It's, in terms of what else is going on in Legacy, I want to talk specifically about Storm.
Storm is one of the most interesting decks in terms of what it looks like coming out of these bannings.
Yes.
Because I think these bannings change a ton of stuff for Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even... So a lot of decks have a very kind of level 1 takeaway of Reanimator being like, well, people aren't playing 4 main deck Graveyard Hate pieces anymore, so I'm probably better. And then everyone's like, well, everyone will start playing real Grave Hate in the sideboard, which remains to be seen. People might. People certainly will at first. If you expect Reanimator to be, like, in
2
every
cages,
phase,
3 surgicals. Yeah.
Yeah, if you expect that to be the case, then you're playing a lot of Grave Hate. But I think that at the same time, Legacy's still very wide, and it's still, unless Reanimator is like super busted and you just need them or you'll die, a lot of people I think will move back down to more normal levels of Grave Hate at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Those levels might still stabilize above Deathrite Shaman era, but I think that they will be overrepresented early and then will move down.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my guess.
So it'll be a kind of peaks and troughs kind of thing in terms of how that looks and how you feel.
More similar to Modern, where it's like, Dredge is good this week. I guess Dredge is never good anymore. But Hollow One is good this week. I'll play my rest in pieces. That kind of thing. Or like, but I think Affinity's better this week, so now I need my Stony Silences. You probably should actually have both in the Modern metagame as it stands, but...
you just for the sake of the argument, for sure.
Yeah, sake of argument of like how these sorts of narrow silver bullet cards like move up and down in peaks and troughs, as you say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So most decks have a level 1 takeaway. Grixis Delver, I'm sorry, you're dead, mate. Reanimator, you're probably a bit better, but maybe people will react in this way. Death and Taxes, you kind of lost a good match. You lost a theoretically good matchup, but you also lost a theoretically bad matchup. But maybe Reanimator's getting better, and that deck's really hard for you to beat. But if they go back to being blue-black, maybe you're better against them.
I want to say something about D&T just there, actually, which I think is like a huge part of it subsiding. I think there's a huge stress on the word theoretically there, because I think we actually got to a point where, in theory, Grixis Delver should be a good matchup, but a lot of very good Grixis pilots were wailing on very good D&T pilots. And I don't know. I don't know if that's like the world getting turned upside down or anything. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about what was, but I guess there was a big reason why, that deck subsided and it's now coming to the fore.
There were lots of reasons why D&T stopped being good.
Sure, yeah, millions. And I think that it's coming to the fore again. And I'm not, again, just like all of these decks that are coming up, as you said, and we agreed, like, I don't know if any of these are good. Like, it's certainly what people are playing because they want to play it, and it's, I've not played Maverick in 2 years, and I want to neither reliquary some people, and it's like, well...
All the Maverick players still played Maverick, Dan.
No,
they're similar to Rug.
No, you
don't put the Maverick down.
No, but there's more.
You pick up a Knight of the Reliquary, you tap it, you sacrifice, you go down to Savannah, you get a Wasteland, you Wasteland your opponent, you untap, you do it again... You're hooked for life, Daniel. They don't stop playing Maverick.
No, I agree with that, but I guess there's more. That's my point. So, like, maybe my imitation of the Maverick player wasn't correct. Maybe the scenario is, ooh, this Maverick thing that I've heard a lot about is interesting.
Maverick. I just
like me
I have
ping
memories
Miranda
of playing
Keith,
Delver.
or I don't know, some amazing Maverick player to be like, what am I doing with this deck? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I just have memories of playing Grixis Delver and people just slamming chokes against me out of Maverick and me just being like, man, I don't get to play these sorts of horrible hate cards against you because nobody plays your stupid deck. I can't play my, I don't know. I don't even know what kind of horrible hate cards I could play. Nobody has thought about them because nobody needs to.
Just submerge them. That's how it works. Yeah, sure. They go and do their thing, and then you submerge them, and then they don't have a night, and it's great.
But submerge is poor, or was poor. Maybe it's better now.
You trick the really bad players by wastelanding their fetch, and then you submerge them. It's phenomenal. I'm not kidding. That's a really good
And then you stifle the fetch?
Oh, yeah, obviously.
That's some Galaxy Brain plays right there.
No, don't shuffle.
We were talking about Storm.
Yes, Storm. So,
okay. So Storm, I feel, is the hardest to take a level 1 away from. Mm-hmm. Where the level 1 is, Grixis Delver was theoretically a bad matchup, although most good Storm players actually said it was a good matchup. But Deathrite Shaman was certainly one of the better cards out of all those decks against you.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where their good Deathrite draws could keep you down enough for them to beat you up, and then when they didn't have the Deathrite or they didn't have crazy pressure, then the games felt really good.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even necessarily that Deathrite single-handedly beat you, but I mean, the way you beat Storm is attacking it on lots of angles.
Exactly,
and having access to Deathrite. Right? Yeah, having access to Deathrite let you attack them on the kind of graveyard angle in game 1, which was quite hard, especially because you can put them in a situation where it's like, well, I kind of want to go for this Passing Flames kill, but he'll just eat the tutor out of my graveyard in response to the Passing Flames, and then I'll lose the game. So I can't do that, so I have to ad nauseum. But I'm at 13, and
he's got a Delver on board, and
yeah, and I'm gonna die. So Deathrite was a part of what made some of these decks better against Storm than they otherwise would be.
Mm-hmm.
So losing Deathrite from the format is probably a net gain for Storm. I mean, even if it's just as simple as my Cabal rituals are going to have Threshold more because my if Nimble Mongoose can hit Threshold more, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Also,
it's a
Probe got banned, so 4 cards from Storm got banned, and not just that, but 4 quite important cards because free spells that draw a card are really good in Storm. I don't know if anybody knew this, but when you're trying to count to 9 and then cast a Tendrils, getting to not have to count that high and just be able to be like, oh, no, I only have to count to 8 because I have a Gataxian Probe is, much easier. And they also meant that you could, sort of you could go off of it speculatively and be like, well, I'm going to draw quite a few cards because I've got some cantrips in my graveyard and a Probe. So, I think I've got a really good chance of hitting what I need to hit off of this Passing Flames, and then I might probably win the game. So that makes that much harder to do. Your Cabal rituals aren't going to have for Threshold as much because you're not just dumping cards into the graveyard with the same velocity. You might have to play another land, and importantly, you can't play Cabal Therapy anymore. I think you just literally can't.
That's it, and a lot of people still think that they can, and I think that they're wrong because all the best Storm players are saying that they can't. So, yeah.
So people are very good at overestimating their own ability with Cabal Therapy in the first place.
Yep.
And also, how we just talked about how, so maybe Reanimator will be good, and maybe Sneak and Share will be good, and maybe Rug will be good. If you're playing against Rug, and you have a Cabal Therapy, and you haven't been able to probe their hand, what do you name?
That's it. No, that's it.
Rug plays nonsense.
That's it.
Rug plays Stifle. Rug plays Spell Snare. Rug plays Force and Daze as well.
And Pierce.
Rug plays Spell Pierce.
Obviously.
Yeah, you have to guess, basically. Because you can't actually know. If they leave up a blue, and you just Cabal Therapy them, what do you name?
And all of these are bad. That's the problem. Against your plan and what's going on, all of these cards are bad for you. And, I mean, Snare's probably okay if you, don't, you've just got it in your hand. You don't need a tutor, but no, you always need a tutor. Oh. Anyway.
Always, but like...
But yeah, often, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the point is that, yeah, as you say, you just, either way, whatever they've got, it's hugely problematic.
And if you miss, you lose the game immediately.
So, should we talk about what's seen play in those slots currently? They're quite obvious swaps, but they do change the way that the deck plays quite a lot. So, Cyrus Cormangill is like really, really good Ant player. Is currently playing Preordains in the Get Probe slot, and Thought Seizers in the Cabal Rituals, and the Cabal Therapy slot.
And that makes the most sense to me as the kind of like level 1 immediate shift.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thoughtseize is kind of worse with Ad Nauseam than Probe was, because it costs you 2 life, but I don't know, it doesn't draw a card, basically. I don't know, I've been thinking about this, because your initial thought is, Thoughtseize is bad with Ad Nauseam because of the 2 life loss. And then you're like, yeah, but they played Git Probe. Git Probe, you lost life, and they were very rarely casting that for its blue mana cost.
Sure, yeah.
And I kind of came to the conclusion that it's like slightly worse because it's like, you can't, like if you Ad Nauseam down to 4 life or whatever, and you stop because you don't want to hit a Past in Flames or a Warrens or a Dark Petition or whatever.
Yeah, return draws, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you have a Git Probe in hand from like drawing with Ad Nauseam, you can like still get another draw.
Yeah.
Whereas Thoughtseize is a bit more of a replaceable effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also worse in that situation because like casting it there and going down to 2 is a little bit worse than casting Git Probe and going down to 2. I don't know, I guess it's not really. That's actually kind of a wash there. But it's more that like it doesn't actually, like a Cabal Therapy was very good after you Ad Nauseamed because you tended to be able to like Thoughtseize them multiple times.
Right.
And multiple Thoughtseizes are much harder to cast after you Ad Nauseam, and they're less impactful. If you duress someone and then go, okay, Cabal Therapy, they probably don't have a hand anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas Thoughtseize is less likely for that to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Another kind of another card that suffered as a result of therapy going down is Empty the Warrens.
Yeah, because you can't. It used to be that you could empty the Warrens and then flashback some number of Cabal Therapies and shred their hand and put them in a position where they can't kill you next turn and you're going to kill them next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just make a bunch of 1/1s and pass the turn.
Yeah, was it?
Which is a lot scarier in
the
Legacy.
Triforce. It was whatever they call it, the Trinity or something, which is what Brian Cook was talking about in his Epic Storm article today, which is Empty, Probe, and Therapy, which is just like, yeah, not a thing anymore, which is interesting. So that's Storm's also playing some really wacky stuff. I'll just talk about like Reign of Filth real quick. Cyrus is testing that right now, which kind of makes sense.
So, I mean, that's been around for a while. Storm pilots are... So the key to understanding Storm is that Storm pilots are all madmen.
Yeah.
And all they really want to do is play nonsense and still win. So stuff like Reign of Filth shows up, and it's like, what is this? This is madness. And they're like, yeah, but I get to win the game with it. I really like winning the game with nonsense cards.
The other card that, apparently, so, okay, this is all happening kind of like right now, because Cyrus is posting on the Ant Facebook page, which is actually quite good. Most Facebook pages
He's also streaming.
Yeah. Well, that's where it's coming from, obviously. Most Facebook pages are pretty bad, for sort of deck discussions, but this one's quite good because there's good pilots posting their results and stuff. He's playing a Sadistic Sacrament.
Oh, I know why that is. I was watching him stream last night.
Yeah, because of the Storm Mirror.
So, I don't think
go ahead.
It's probably incorrect to play Sadistic Sacrament. But what he was saying was that he was very tilted, and he just wished he would stop losing to Storm.
But it's still on the list, like right now, because apparently 30% of his matches have been versus Storm, because everyone's just trying to figure out what the heck they're doing with Storm, which is such a weird place to be playing Legacy in, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, this is why I think it's impossible to really call what's going to be good or what's even going to be played that much, because some people will play Grixis without Deathrite and Probe because they're trying to figure out how you make Grixis work.
Sure. and then they just play against like the version of their deck that still has these, and great.
But I mean, even after the bans go live,
people
will be playing Grixis being
I'm quickly going to cover what Sadistic Sacrament does, because I realised that we're done from that. So Sadistic Sacrament is a sorcery for black. It has kicker 7. We'll get to that in a minute. Search target player's library for up to 3 cards, exile them, then that player shuffles their library. If this spell was kicked, instead search that player's library for up to 15 cards, exile them, then that player shuffles their library. So
you never kick it.
Never
just to make that clear.
You just cast it off a ritual in the mirror, take their win cons, and whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
Oh, this was miserable. Should we move on from Storm?
Probably.
Yeah.
Given that we don't actually know that much about Storm.
Exactly. I'm kind of like, I've obviously talked to some good Storm pilots, and I'm halfway through building it, and I'm very intrigued by it. But I just think it's kind of interesting what those pilots are doing right now, basically in the wake of these bannings.
I am very interested in where the deck goes, because I think it's the deck that it has the least clear future.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's interesting to talk about, even if neither of us are fully equipped to cover things, back to front. I still think it's a cool thing to talk about. So there's a lot of Stoneforge decks that are coming up. There's Bant. It's kind of the main big one, I think. I don't know. That's the one that a lot of people are playing, apparently. And obviously there's D&T that's making a bit of a resurgence, and all the Jeskai and Esper Stoneblades and Maverick itself. So all very interesting. As we said, there's this Grixis bug split in the blue-black control lists, which are kind of all shooting off from 4-color. Bug obviously.
Well, you've seen some people be like, "Oh, I don't see why you'd play green anymore." And Kolaghan's command is so good, and people are like, "Well, I don't see why you'd play red anymore." Leovold is so good.
Yeah. These are the tools you have.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on how you're trying to position yourself. Leovold is an excellent fair card, but I actually think he's more of a hedge against combo.
For sure. Agreed.
Because he's just very, very good at shutting down the cantrips out of, almost every combo deck. Whereas Kolaghan's command is less exciting against most combo decks. As most of them aren't putting artifacts into play that they expect to stick around. And 3 mana, half a mind rot is not the most exciting thing to be doing against combo.
Yeah.
But Kolaghan's command probably has a bit more raw power in the fair matchups.
Yeah, and if Blade's coming up, then K-Command is obviously primo. So
yeah, it also doesn't get pyroblasted, which is a pretty big deal.
No, that is huge. I think there's also, you can talk about kind of, I think how good Abrupt Decay is important in dictating that, because Abrupt Decay was very, very good a few years ago, and sort of fell by the wayside a little bit, but I still think it's going to be important if we're looking to, depending on what's going on, basically, because, I mean, in the background, we still got Moonstompy kind of looming over all of this confusion and just being like, oh, well, you're all trying to cast these spells and I'm going to shut you out.
Well, that's another deck where it's totally unclear how things will end.
Oh, it's unreal because,
because that deck was very... Well, that deck was very clearly a product of the best decks are all Deathrite decks.
Yes.
And they all play, no basics? Okay, cool. I'll play Blood Moon.
And I'll chalice you, because that's significant. Because this is what I was going to say. If you go look at the decks that have slightly more varied curve, if you will, like the D&Ts and the non-blue decks, basically, then Chalice gets a bit weird, and then they're the only ones playing Dorks now, because Noble Hierarch's the best Dork in Legacy. So I don't know. It's as you say, it's just so difficult to predict, but it's still there. And separately to that, there's also the Marital Age decks, which are obviously still in the picture, and predicting where lands goes is so difficult.
Well, it's also because, again, if everyone's like, oh yeah, we think the best deck's going to be Show and Tell and Reanimator, and you're a lands player, and you're like, okay, cool, see you guys in a few months.
See you later. I love this Tabernacle thing that I own.
Yeah. Whereas, but
then Turbodepths is in a totally different spot there.
Yeah, but also Turbodepths, Turbodepths was another deck that was very heavily metagamed to prey upon all the Deathrite decks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because they were all quite soft to Marital Age combo. Mm-hmm. And if you just don't have those good matchups, and let's say D&T ends up being a good deck in this meta again. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, Turbodepths is bad against D&T. Oh man, it's tough.
Yeah, and then
you got a Pithing Needle, Caracas, and Wasteland? Mm-hmm. And you got to, be able to Thoughtseize every Swords to Plowshares they play, while they're, hitting you with Thalia?
Yeah, this is all miserable. I mean, they're just, ugh. Yeah, okay. So this is all really interesting and difficult to predict, but I'm just going to be stifling people and figuring out what my 75 looks like.
I might try stifling people, but I'm much more likely to try playing Stonevoid Mystic again, because I really actually like Blue-White Stoneblade a lot. And
Yeah.
I also have a soft spot for Jeskai Stoneblade. I have no idea if they're going to be good. This is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing. This is what actually makes me the most excited about this announcement for Legacy, is that it feels like I'm kind of free. Like, I felt like I had to play Grixis before because it was probably the best deck. But I didn't actually like it that much. It was just very good.
Yes.
But now, I can try out all these various different things. There's no consensus best deck.
You're
Who
just
cares?
going to play Blue-Red Delver, aren't you?
I'm just going to play Blue-Red Delver. I'm just going to try out a bunch of stuff in it. It's going to be great.
Yep.
And I'm going to play Blue-White Stoneblade and Jeskai Stoneblade, because I love those decks as well. I'm going to play Meddling Mages and Aethersworn Canonists and Containment Priests. I love those cards.
That's all really cool, yeah, for sure. And you get to play Blast. Oh, yeah, that deck sounds cool.
And I'm gonna try. Deathrite Shaman did a lot of things, and the smallest thing, or they didn't. People knew about it. People talked about it, but I don't think it got talked about as much as others. The smallest, big thing in this Legacy metagame was it held down that most noble of stat lines, the 1-mana 1/1.
Are we talking about goblins?
But you can if you want me, but I'm not actually that interested.
Everyone wants to
Goblins
talk about
Goblins has the most clearly held down 1-mana 1/1. I still think Goblins has other endemic issues in modern Legacy that make it still not a very good choice. But if people aren't blanking your lackey, you can actually probably play it now and not be laughed out of the store.
Right. It's not amazing.
Similar to Mongoose. It used to be that you
playable.
couldn't play Mongoose without, everyone laughing at you and saying, ha, what a silly Mongoose player. Did you think you would get Threshold? Deathrite Shaman. Ho ho. I think that you can testify that was your experience, Dan.
Obviously.
Actually, the saddest thing about this whole environment, or this whole announcement, is that I can't make fun of you for playing Rug anymore.
I was going to say, I think the only person that ever made fun of me was you. But I think that's probably a testament to our friendship. But,
probably.
What are you actually trying to talk about? Which one are we talking about?
I'm actually talking about Bomat Courier.
Oh,
a card which I don't know if it's good or not.
I think it's pretty cool.
But I want to try it, because I think it has a lot of raw power.
Yeah, Ben Friedman's trying to put it in Rug, which I think is probably wrong, but sounds really good
very
in Blue-Red.
bad in Rug.
Yeah, real bad.
I want to try it in Blue-Red, because Blue-Red is the kind of deck that empties its hand very fast, and also is interested in a Raging Goblin to some degree.
Yeah.
Obviously you wouldn't just play a Raging Goblin, that card isn't good enough. But a Raging Goblin that, demands removal, or it will draw, 5 cards, is a pretty good card, I think. I also think it's an interesting... So, with Probe being banned, Blue-Red does actually lose a card, because Probe was pretty good in Blue-Red. It contributed to your most explosive draws.
Right.
But I'm trying out, a couple of Preordains, and just, shifting around the way the deck's constructed a little. I've taken out... I used to be playing Bedlam Revelers, and I also played a Cryptic Serpent at one point. I have no idea if that guy was actually right, but he was sweet.
Yeah, he's super sweet. People tried him in Rug as well. It's almost certainly bad. But the
sounds
5/6
terrible
body
in
is
Rug.
so good, but in a world of
6/5, but
6/5, whatever. Yeah.
The main thing about him was that he was much easier to... He was much better against, Hymn to Turak decks.
Sure.
Than Bedlam Reveler. Because it was just easier to, you didn't... your prowess threats were kind of poor against the Hymn to Turak decks, because they were just taxing your resources so much that it was really hard to, trigger prowess that many times a turn. So just having, a 6/5 that just hit them was a really good deal. Whereas... Reveler was slightly awkward there, and so were the other, so was Storm Chaser Mage and the other prowess threats. Although Reveler's generally pretty good in grindy matchups. But I've cut all of those cards because I'm not sure how playable they actually are in a world where you aren't getting 1 or 2 free instance of sorceries in the bin every game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot harder to cast him if you don't lead on Git Probe. So I'm playing I think a couple of Preordains instead, and then I'm also playing 4 Bomat Couriers, with the goal being to figure out if this card is actually Legacy power level or not. Yeah, I think it might be. I think it might be. Well, I think if it's good, you play 4 of anyway.
For sure, but for the purposes of your testing as well, you just see it all the time and you get an idea, I guess.
I think it's interesting with Brainstorm.
Oof, yeah, I like that.
Because letting you actually like letting it kind of be like a pseudo fetch, like a pseudo shuffle, where you're like, oh, well, this card's kind of bad right now, and maybe the card's not even bad forever. It's just bad right now, and you're like, I don't need this thing. I'll put it under Bedlam. I'll put it under I'll put it under the Courier, and I'll draw it later. Or maybe I won't draw it at all. But like, it clears off your brainstorms and draws you new cards that way.
That's really cool. I hadn't thought about that. Like, genuinely, I know it sounds really minor, but it's really cool.
It threatens to just like draw a million cards in the late game, and I don't think it's as atrocious a top deck as it kind of sounds, because it's not actually that atrocious of a top deck in Standard. You just kind of draw it, and you're like, oh, okay, this is just a redraw. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just if I really need a card right now, I just like play it, attack, like crack it, find a new card. Mm-hmm. Plus, also good things it does with Brainstorm. If you're about to crack it and you have a Brainstorm in hand and a blue mana available in addition to the red mana, you can cast Brainstorm, hold priority, activate Bomat Courier, and draw all the cards from Bomat Courier before you resolve your Brainstorm.
That's cool. This is all really cool stuff that I'd not thought about, and I definitely am excited to play games against you and see this happen.
So I'm not excited to play games against you, because I do think that Rog sounds like its most nightmare place. Because you can stifle the activation.
Yeah, boy.
And that sounds atrociously bad.
Yep, I'll take into it.
I think that if like Elves and D&T become good as well, then like maybe I don't want to play Bomat Courier.
Mm-hmm. Bomat's an annoying place at that point for sure.
Well, because like he has to attack, and he's just a 1-mana 1/1. So in a lot of matchups, that's fine, because people either aren't playing creatures or they're playing rubbish creatures. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously when Deathmatch Shaman was around, it was awful, because you couldn't attack into Deathmatch Shaman, so you'd play your Raging Goblin, and it would never attack, and it would die. But now that he's gone, people have, they play a Delver, and you're like, alright, Bomat Courier, and they're like, I probably don't want to block, right?
Yeah, and you're happy either way, sort of.
And you're happy either way, because either way you've killed their Delver, or you haven't, but, maybe you're not happy either way.
Sure.
I'm sure that circumstances will change, but you're a deck with 8 Lightning Bolts. You're probably okay with killing a Delver, or not killing a Delver.
How does that work against D&T when you have all of the spot removal? Like, I've just no experience in the matchup.
It's okay. The problem is that D&T still has kind of the inevitability, so you can't just kill everything they play and eventually take over the game.
Sure, like if the game goes long, then it's obviously poor for you.
And they're also very good at, like, tempoing. Mm-hmm. So, like, if they just play a Thalia, and you're like, okay, well, I have to spend my whole turn killing this Thalia, and then they play a Stoneforge Mystic and a Mom, and you're like, I've got one removal spell. Mm-hmm. I can't win if this Batterskull touches the board, so I guess I'll kill this Stoneforge Mystic. Oh, well, but there's got an active Mom now, so I guess I die. The D&T matchup is not actually bad. It's just interesting and has a lot of back and forth going on.
Sounds like cool games.
But Bomat Courier doesn't sound very good there because they just play a lot of creatures that can block it relatively well. And I guess Elves, it just sounds terrible because they just make a million creatures.
Sure,
and yeah. So trade with a goddamn like Birch Law Rangers, buddy.
But that's always fine. Terrible, irrespective of whether or not you got Bomat Courier in your deck, right? I don't know. Delver draws are good. Delver draws are good.
Delver draws are good, and so are Stormchaser Mage draws, and because you have
Stormchaser Mage, I hadn't thought about that. Delver draws are always good if you're a Delver deck versus Elves. That's kind of what I'm saying.
But you have a lot more burn. Mm-hmm. So it's much easier to translate a flipped Delver into a quick victory.
That's cool.
I've found.
So much easier than say the Grixis matchup.
Yeah, you play slightly more straightforward sweepers in your sideboard as well, in the form of Rough Tumble.
Ooh, love the... Well, actually, I don't like Rough Tumble in Rug, but the card itself is cool.
The card is very cool, and it's very good in blue-red because it doesn't actually kill your stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's another point. It does kill Bomat Courier. So if you're going to play Bomat Courier, you probably want to take it out in all the matchups where you're bringing in Rough Tumble.
That makes sense. Cool.
But yeah, I'm going to try out this card.
That sounds
Maybe
cool.
I broke it. Maybe it's not very good. But I think that there's promise there, and I think it has a lot of interesting interactions with cards that are already played in Legacy. Mm-hmm. I played 6 games against Miracles, pre-ban, but with Bomat Courier in my deck because I was annoyed and wanted to try it out.
I bet that went
and I beat them a lot. I beat them a lot because Burnt My Courier is insane against Miracles. But it's also probably the best matchup for it, so I think that might be a slightly non-representative sample.
A little bit polarizing for sure. But I mean, if it's gonna be as prominent as people think, at least for the first couple of weeks, again, whether or not that's correct or not, whatever.
But then again, if Sneak and Show are Reanimator are really big decks, then is Blue-Red Delver where you want to be? Because that deck does not have a lot of good tools against them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've beaten Reanimator players and I've beaten Sneak and Show players, but it tends to be the not very good ones that do something stupid that gets them killed. The players who like draw down to 7 with their Grizzlebrand, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Chain Lightning, you Fire Blast you die? And they're like, oh, this happens.
You play Fire Blast? Yes, I do.
Yeah. Or the Sneak and Show players who just don't play around days. Like, they just jam with no mana up, and you're like, oh, okay.
You're not putting them under any pressure at all, but they're just like, crack my pedal, do the thing.
Yeah, I'm putting them under some pressure, but not enough pressure. Sure. I'm like, haha, I'm hitting you with a Delver and a Monastery Swift Spear, and they're like, I'm at 16. Jam! And you're like, days! And they're like, oh no, I'm not going to do anything for the rest of the game. And you're like, thank God! If you'd waited one turn, I could never have won!
Yeah. So what am I'll quickly talk about what I'm doing in Rug. And the answer is actually not very much. There's a kind of internal debate right now as to whether or not Goyf is better now, specifically because mirrors are going to pop up and you don't want to be the man with a 4/4 monkey versus the 4/5 lower Goyf. But there's also talk of all these combo decks showing up where the mandrels are a bit better because you can deploy them for 1 mana. And that's kind of subject for debate as well, because maybe the zoo draws are good, blah, yada, yada, yada. Right now I'm playing with Goyf. I'm still playing a lot of removal spells in the main deck right now, because there's all these D&T things and Stoneforge things popping up that I just, need to kill.
You don't need to kill Stoneforge, Dan. You can just stifle it.
Yeah, it's great.
Stifle does everything, Dan.
Okay.
Stifle's the best Magic cards.
We can't play this game anymore. Remember?
Stifle is actually probably good again. Is
great.
Stifle a badly designed Magic card? Do I hate Stifle? I don't think so. Although I do think Stifle's in a weird spot where if it's good in your metagame, it's not doing what you intended it to do.
I also think that the interaction between Stifle and Fetch Lands is not how Stifle was. It was not its intended use at all. So when we talk
that's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
if Stifle is ever being played seriously in a tournament setting, then like the people playing it are not doing what you thought of when you printed
when you made the card. Sure. Yeah. I still think. So what else is going on? I think Spell Snare's at a really good spot right now. So I have a unfettered love for that card. So I kind of feel like maybe going up on numbers there. In terms of sideboard, I'm going up a bit on Grave Hate. Still playing Winter Orbs. Playing a bit more Artifact Destruction maybe. 3 slots rather than 2 just to deal with all the Battle Skulls. And I've still got like Vapor Snag and stuff to deal with 2020s. So right now, not changing too much, seeing how things go. And
Spell Snare is a pretty interesting card actually going into the metagame. If we expect D&T to go up, then it catches a ton of the relevant things they're doing. Although obviously Vial kind of beats you up a little bit there, but they don't always
counter the Vial. Counter the Vial and Winter Orb them. You always win those games. Those games are so good.
But it's like you can do that again. It counters a lot of the important creatures out of D&T. It counters a lot of the important spells out of Storm. It counters a lot of the reanimation spells out of Reanimator.
Yep.
Snare
was really good pre-banning. It was a bit medium against Grixis, Delver, but if you're on a Goyf plan, you needed to counter Pyro anyway. So it was pretty good there. I mean, you need to counter Pyro anyway, even if you're on Apes, because the whole...
You didn't always need to, but like commonly there was a situation where you were like, well, I want to be able to trade my resources for theirs efficiently, and this does it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it would be a bit medium because it wouldn't trade for their resources efficiently. They wouldn't have drawn the Pyromancer, and that's like the only 2 they played. So
yeah,
you're kind of staring at this spell snare in your hand.
Just hope. But yeah, it looks really good going in, especially in the mirror, because Tarmogoyf is the best, one of the best cards in the mirror, assuming you can resolve it, because resolving 2 mana spells in the Rug mirror is really hard. But if you can stick a Goyf, then that tends to go the way. So there's argument for playing more snares, maybe an argument for playing 2 dismembers rather than 1 in the flex removal slots. But it's all kind of tweaking, because I'm not sure how familiar people are with the old kind of Rug I don't know, content, but there was always talk of, the quote-unquote Rug 54, which was these 54 cards that you were always going to play, which was basically your threat suite, your bolts, your stifles, your land base, your cantrips, force days, all that kind of stuff.
The things that did the main things that the deck was doing, which was, like, keep them off mana, deploy cheap threat, kill.
Yeah, and then it turns out that the Rug 54 ended up being a bit wonky anyway, because you didn't actually want to play 4 Tarmogoyfs as the meta developed. But that still kind of rings true, in that, you still have to have all these things. You only have so many flex slots, but there's a lot of room for wiggle in the sideboard, whether or not you want to play Life from the Loam or Winter Orb is a dividing choice, whether you want to play Mandrills or Tarmogoyf. And these are all calls that we need to make going into this new metagame. So it's exciting.
My guess on the Mandrills versus Goyf thing will be that it will depend on whether or not Bug or Grixis ends up being the, like, control deck of choice that isn't Miracles.
Ooh, that's interesting. I like that a lot, actually, yeah, because, obviously Fatal Push was a reason that Goyf got elbowed out, and I hadn't really thought about the way that things fall with Bug versus Grixis, and yeah, Abrupt Decay.
The Grixis decks will still want to be playing Lightning Bolt in a reasonable number of cases, I think.
And they'll probably play one or two pushes if, like, things get really creature heavy, but they need to play the Lightning Bolts for the unfair matchups, and Bug also has
Bug
Abrupt
will be
Decay
playing,
and
like,
push,
Abrupt Decay and push, yeah. And you just don't want to be playing Goyf in those into that.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Dan.
Okay.
Are you going to be buying Invocation Stifles?
No.
But Dan, there's a jackal man, and he's in a tomb.
Give me my weird Earthworm Jim Stifle. That's my favorite Stifle. That's all. That's the one I've got. They're my Stifles. That's all I need. I'm referring to the Scourge Wizards, which are a really, really cool piece of I don't know, design, art, whatever. Really like those guys.
It's weird blue people.
Weird blue people, but I'm really into them, like Scornful Egotist and stuff, like old.
But
school
Dan,
Magic
in this
stuff.
one, there's a lot of heads of I think like ibis, and they're all vomiting water, and the jackal man is maybe going to drown.
I don't understand. I'm looking at it now that you've mentioned it, because I've never looked at it that closely. Although I have seen it online, because this is quite cheap, because it looks weird, obviously. But I've not looked at it this closely before, and I've no idea how this represents Stifle in the slightest.
That is my main confusion.
Right?
Does he have like a fiery sword?
It's like it's a torch, yeah.
But it looks a lot like a fiery sword.
It's also like, I guess the water is like slowly filling up the room, and will eventually like stifle his breathing or stifle the torch. I don't really understand what's going on, but in my mind, and especially the way that the gameplay goes, stifle is it's a very quick thing, like it happens.
Stifle is this immediate thing. You're trying to do something that is by definition very quick,
right? Because
it's like something that happens and then is over. It's almost quicker than an instant in how it feels.
Right.
Like cracking a fetch land is something you barely even think about.
Yeah, and then you're like,
as an action. Especially in modern.
Yeah.
people have to get into Stifles quickly before you get the land out. Otherwise, it's over.
Charge,
they can't stifle anymore.
Yeah.
Them's the rules, right? If you get your land out quick before they say stifle, then they can't stifle it anymore. It's too late. If you go like, bam.
No, I got the land.
Crack the fetch land. Get the land. Play a Delver. Go. They can't be like, stifle it. You're like, no, what are you stifling? The Delver? It's too late. It's too late now.
So...
that's my tournament strategy against Rogue Pilots.
I feel like we should have an editor note here, or like a producer note, because Jaren's interjected to say that the dictionary definition of stifling is to make someone unable to breathe properly, suffocate. So...
Yeah,
I guess
so I think
that's what the artist
this is the
did.
case of an artist reading the title of a card and not
looking into
actually
the
knowing how the card feels in play. Because this just does not represent how the card feels to play.
Exactly. So for those at home, look up the Amonkhet invocation of Stifle, and then this whole segment will actually make sense, because if you don't, we just sound pretty silly.
The art is quite nice aside from that.
Sure.
Cliff Childs has done a very nice aesthetic job. I just think that as a thematic job, it struggles.
Yeah, well, that's our little art critique section of the podcast. Well, we're making this a regular segment going forward.
I really don't think we should. I don't know anything about art.
We're definitely not doing that. I liked your critique, though. I thought it was good. So that's Legacy in a nutshell. We definitely need to report back next week.
Yeah, I'm very excited to play a lot of Legacy.
Exactly.
Following the bans actually hitting online. I'm personally not interested in playing in this format where you can still run into Grixis Delver.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be playing any of the cards in it.
Sure. I feel that.
Like, I'm just not interested in this like half and half Deathrite format. I'd much rather just like play a format that is like established as you can't do these things.
So
I'm just not playing Legacy right now.
So that hits tomorrow. So I'm not going to be sleeping very much this week. I think probably. That's exciting. And yeah, report back next week with our findings. What's going on? I'm certainly keeping my ear to the ground and in a bunch of different Discords, Facebook groups, chats, and nonsense, just trying to get an idea of, where the best minds are at. So that's a lot of fun. And in the meantime, answering a lot of rug questions about people stumbling in and being like, what is a mongoose? What do I do? Someone please help me. So that'll be fun.
You just never tap out, right? You just always hold up Stifle.
I mean,
even if it means never deploying a threat.
I mean, never is a problem, but there are times where you can't deploy threats.
But the point of Rug is to resolve as many Stifles on as many fetch lands as possible. Right? It doesn't matter if you actually win the game. It matters how many times your opponent went,
Get
another one. You drew three. You drew 3 Stifles.
And 2 wastelands.
And 2 wastelands. What an unreasonable human you are. And you're just like, I don't know. Stifle your thing. I'm much cleverer than Ponza players. I do actually quite enjoy because like Rug is basically just Ponza, but for the Legacy age.
I mean, no, because Ponza has like a ramp element. That's like the whole point in Ponza. Ponza was land destruction and ramp. That's why it was.
Sure.
Ponza's like
and Rug is land destruction and efficient threats because you don't need to ramp.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if
I mean more. They're both like mana denial decks.
Yeah, for sure.
They both occupy the same kind of space in terms of, in my opinion, they occupy the same similar space in terms of what their strategy is trying to achieve, which is I'm going to keep you off mana until in Ponza it's until I play something big that kills you, and in Rug it's while I play something small that kills you.
Yeah, but it just feels so much more incremental, whereas that Ponza's just like, bruh, did it.
Well, how they feel is very different, but I think that the actual strategy is like closer than it seems. It's just that mana denial is way more powerful in Legacy.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because mana, like, there's such a sub game with. I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. I'm just sort of exploring the point. And like, I don't know, when you're playing all these cards, like, I mean, because I'll tell you for free, I played a heck of a lot of games of Ponza a couple of years ago, where if I had things like, I don't know, even like Spell Pierce in my deck, I would have felt a lot better. Than just be
that's definitely true. But that's also just a shift of Legacy, right?
Sure.
It's like you get to like all the decks are playing blue because blue is like a lot better. Whereas you can't just like stick blue in your deck in Modern and be like, hooray, my deck is better now because blue isn't as good. Mm-hmm, you don't get access to all the same kind of powerful cards.
Mm-hmm.
But
nobody gets lands.
Yeah,
that's the point.
I played against Rug Delver in Modern recently.
What? Why?
Because I was playing a Modern League.
I know, but why did they do that? And
I don't know. I mean, they killed me. I was playing Burn, and they played like several Tarmogoyfs.
So Tarmogoyf, like, Delver, Lightning Bolt,
Hooting Mandrills.
Jesus, okay, and
Mana Leak. I kind of have not been seeing around. I think Snapcaster. I don't remember seeing any. I just remember seeing like every game they played a Tarmogoyf on turn 2 with me not being able to bolt it. And I was never able to path them, and I was just always like, okay.
This just feels like a Tarmogoyf versus Burn exercise, though.
Yeah, and Tarmogoyf has always been good against Burn, so I was just kind of like, alright, I guess I'll die.
I'd laugh if like you were just playing against them and you're like, maybe he mana leaks me, and they just start like Eternal commanding you, and you're just like, what is going on?
I mean, that would be sick. I'd be into that.
I mean, that's like the last
I wouldn't
rug
really,
deck
but I'd be
about.
much more into it, I think, than I would otherwise be.
That's like the last rug deck that I can really think about, though. Right? Like,
I don't know. They were like rug mid-range decks for a little while.
Okay, yeah, sure.
They're like curved out at. I mean, they were kind of Rug Delver, but they curved out at the top of with what's his name? Hunt Master of the Fells.
That's it. Yep.
Because he's really good in Rug. Because you get to be like flip him. Mm-hmm. Like you play him. Uh-huh. And your opponent does stuff, and then you untap, and you just pass the turn because you have counterspells, and you flip him, and then on their turn you play 2 spells because you like counter 2 of their things or whatever, or you like counter something and kill something of theirs, and then he comes back to your turn and he flips back, and you pass turn again, and then he flips again, and it's just like the card's just like really obscene in a Rug strategy.
Okay,
it's just that Rug wasn't very good.
Nathaniel, I think I found the guy that you played against. Like, he has 2 5-0s with Rugdelver in Modern.
Oh man,
He's playing...
I did not keep track of his name, so it could be it could not be him, or it could be him, but I don't know.
We're definitely in the ramble sign-off bit of the podcast, so I think I'm going to just
I think that's
talk
definitely
through
true.
this 75 real quick. So he's playing 4 Delver, 1 Snapcaster, 4 Tarmogoyf, 2 Young Pyro, 4 Hooting Mandrills, 4 Faithless Looting, 2 Fork Bolt, 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Serum Visions, 3 Spell Pierce, 1 Stubborn Denial, 2 Thought Scour, 4 Vapor Snag, 3 Mana Leak, 18 lands.
Is he playing any Stubborn Denials in the sideboard?
2 more.
Okay, it might have been him because I remember him having 2 Stubborn Denials. There was a point in time where I tried to bait out counterspells. I like end of turn Boros Charmed him and he spell pierced it. So I untap and I Boros Charmed him again and he Stubborn Denialed it, and he had 1 mana available on a Tarmogoyf, and I was like, alright, sick. Now I get to maybe pass this. Yeah. So I passed it and he had the second stub, and I was like,
God,
I want to die. I never want to play the stupid deck again.
These 5-0s are in the last week. Like, this is like very, very new stuff going on. Well, what this man is doing. Sorry, Hollow One. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I play against Hollow Whack.
Hollow Whack. Yeah.
My opponent went turn 1 Copperline Gorge, and I was like, all right, I think that's okay for me. I don't think there's that many decks I can think of that play Copperline Gorge at the moment, but I think I should be in a reasonable place against most of them. And he goes, all right, tap Copperline Gorge, Burning Inquiry, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's like a Vengevine.
Yeah.
Hollow One build?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds bad for me, because Hollow One is generally bad for me, but Gurmag Angler is also a big part of why that's bad for me, so maybe this is better? And he discards, Land, Lightning Bolt, Reckless Bushwhacker, and I was kind of like, what? What's happening? In game 2, he discards a Become Immense, and I'm like, oh my god.
What is going on? I feel like this guy's just showing off at this point. He's like, hey, look at these
he
cards.
Discards it with a Burning Inquiry. The same Burning Inquiry which discards 2 of my Ensnaring Bridges. He double Thought Seizes me, effectively, and takes 2 of the best cards in the matchup, and I'm just like,
oh no.
Alright. Okay. Man, I did not win that game or that match. I won one of the games, but I did not win that match. It was tough.
Doesn't sound like it. Jeez.
Oh yeah, and then he also I have no idea how to sideboard, because normally I take out some of my searing effects against Red Black Hollow One, because the cards that matter aren't the Adept and the Bloodghasts and the Phoenixes. The cards that matter are the Anglers and the Hollow Ones, so I just want to have ways of killing them, and I want to have Ensnaring Bridges. And I don't want cards to get stuck in my hand with the Ensnaring Bridge. I mean, the Searing effects probably won't, but they're just they're not exactly where I want to be, so I bought up some number of them. Not all of them, but some number. And then he's playing Burning Tree Emissary.
Sure.
And I'm like, do I take out my Searing effects? I don't think so. What do I take out? Oh, I have no idea. Okay, let's get Hollow Whacked. Although I do really want that deck to be good, because it's called Hollow Whack, and that sounds amazing.
Yeah, Hollow Whack is a phenomenal name. Did you come up with that, or did you tell you I am Hollow Whack?
No, I came up with that.
That's good.
I wrote it down in my testing sheet as Hollow Whack.
Well done. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I think that's about all. That's about all for this week.
Yep, definitely. So we had Legacy and a whole bunch of random modern stuff. Yeah. So thanks very much for listening, guys. If you liked it, then make sure you like and share the video. We're almost on iTunes. We're very much at the drum roll moment.
We do
now.
have a podcast. Some people will be listening to this on the podcast site.
Oh yeah,
where it's just there's
an RSS feed. Yeah.
I tweeted it. We do have an RSS feed that it does get posted to now.
Okay.
So
we'll share that as well.
People can also find us there if that is easier for them to access than a YouTube video, which I know it certainly is for me.
Yeah, no, that for sure. We can share that, as well as obviously this is going up on YouTube as well. So if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Because until we get on iTunes, and if that's the way you consume it, that's where it's at. And there's also a whole bunch of other good stuff going on there, which is great. You can also follow us on Twitter. I'm at Dan Nathaniel. Nathaniel is at F_Ironside. Check out Murphy's Vault, murphysvault.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and there's a WordPress site with all the articles, so that'll all be in the description below.
And
yes,
if you are of a Scottish bent,
yep,
Murphy's Vault is actually hosting the upcoming Scottish Nationals of the weekend of the 21st and the 22nd of July. So you should probably sign up for that if you want to play it.
Yep.
Which you probably should, because it sounds great.
So, and it's sponsored by UltraPro and cardmarket.com. And
yes, it is.
Tickets are available on murphysvault.com. So you can get all your singles, bits and bobs, as well as tickets to Nats. So check it out.
And that will also direct you to a WordPress site which has lots of articles, including a recap that I wrote, or I guess a recap / tournament report. I don't know. It was an experiential thing about my trip to GP Copenhagen and my time meeting lots of different people there and playing some Magic as well. And other articles written by other people who aren't me. But you should probably read mine first, just to,
It's all good stuff. Once again, thanks very much for listening. We've been from the Vault, and you've been fantastic.